Bleep, 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 bleep. Hey, it's working. Welcome to the edge of Western civilization. Here's where we are. There's the sun of solar system fame. There's Venice Beach. There's the boardwalk. And the endless stream of humanity. Yeah. More endless stream of humanity. And so, go. Oh yeah. So this is what we got yesterday. This is what we finished with. Let's see. Get that in now. Oops. Yeah. Actually, I worked on a little bit today and filled in these. Today we're going to finish this here. And if there's time, we'll start another one. Okay. How about that one? Is that? That's a little better. Okay. You want to sit down there. Hello.
That's cool. I like the way.
Thank you. Okay. It's not too bad. All right. What do we got? So this is episode 19, which means I've almost been doing this for 3 weeks. Day after tomorrow will make it 3 weeks. The goal is to do it every day until I head off to the Rainbow Gathering in Utah. probably around the solstice when I head out. I'd like to be on the site by the solstice. We're doing a kitchen there, a free kitchen called the Natural High Kitchen. And there's a Facebook group by the same name, Natural High Kitchen. If you want to find out more about that. If you're not familiar with what rainbow is, I'll explain as best I can. It's been going on since 1972, and the whole focus is a silent peripheral piece. Silent peripheral piece from dawn until noon on the 4th of July. And the silence is broken by a children's parade. It comes all the way from Kid Village. And they break the silence at noonish. Usually people own at the end to break the silence, and then there's a big drum party all afternoon, watermelons and fruit. People just giving thanks for being alive. And there can be, anywhere from, I would say, 5,000 to 25,000 people at the gathering, wherever it is And we're back. I hope. Sorry about that. So weird thing is, I was just explaining about the rainbow gathering, and somebody has called me about the rainbow gathering. So anyway, rainbow gatherings in the States have been going on since 1972, and now they're going on all over the world. And this has you know, there's a world gathering scene, there's a European gathering. The European gathering's been going on for about 30 years as well. There's gatherings in Israel, and India, you name it. And there's been gatherings in China, Russia, really big in Russia actually. In fact, the European gathering was in Russia. Back when it was still, well, now that it's dangerous there again, Putin era. So, a gathering is like a giant slumber party with, like I said, like between 5 and 25,000 people. And I think the largest gathering I've ever been to was here in the States. I used to be the person that focalized a dinner circle, what we call focalize, organized, but we call it focalizing. And so there'd be like 20 or 30 kitchens preparing food all day long for the dinner circle. And you know, you get about 6,000 people coming to sit down in a giant circle and share a meal together. And somebody had to kind of organize that, like tell which food to go where, make sure everybody got something, make sure everybody's getting something, and, you know. So it was really a lot of fun to, you know, and it, you know, rainbows in general are pretty anarchic group, you know, not real keen on authority, and but or no buts, I should say. It's really cool when the only way that anything gets done in a rainbow gathering is because somebody felt like doing it. It's all run by consensus, council, and initiative. So, you know, the only way that food gets made or fire gets made is because somebody goes out and gets the firewood, and somebody decides, well, it would be really great if we had some fresh water, so let's run some water line from a nearby spring. Let's find a spring and run the water line. And that means somebody had to go out and get the water line, or have the forethought to get, you know, go out and get some water line, and out of their own pocket usually. Although we have what's called the banking council, and at the dinner circle we pass a magic hat with a magic hat train of like musicians and clowns and anybody else who wants to join in, and you know, people put whatever we call it green energy into the magic hat they want to share, and out of that, the banking council decides how that money gets spent, and their job is to spend all the money. You know, and so about 10 or 15% of that goes to supply what we call the medical unit. We call it CALM, the Center for Alternative Living Medicine. It's like a series of small field hospitals, but it's not really a hospital in the sense that, you know, there's people. It's not just, you know, injured people. It's also a place for people to get information. You know, about like if there's poison ivy or what bugs to look out for, that kind of thing. But yeah, sure, if there's injuries, like somebody breaks a leg or camping, then you know, we're set to do that. And we have every kind of medical professional you can think of that are just regular rainbows, but this is what they do in the real world. They're nurses, they're doctors, they're surgeons, they're acupuncturists, they're herbalists. In fact, there's one brother, Seven Song, he has a school called Seven Song, where he teaches herbalism, the study of herbs, herbal medicine, and he brings his whole class as part of the year-long curriculum to help out at COM. That's part of their first initiation into studying herbs is the application of it on the ground. And I've had friends that have gone through his program and speak pretty highly of it. And when that brother gives an herb walk, I mean, he's got like a couple hundred people following him around the woods and wherever we are in the national forest. So like what I was saying is, in the States, we have public lands like National Forest and the Bureau of Land Management, called BLM lands, and not the national parks, because you have to pay to go into a national park. But these are lands that are free, in theory, for people to use. And so more often than not, that's where we have the rainbow gatherings, in the national forest or on BLM land, public lands that nobody owns. And let's see, where was I going with that? Yeah, but in the rest of the world, you know, like the first time I went to a rainbow gathering in Europe, it was in Ireland, and you know, there isn't any public land there. So what we did is we leased a farm that was a 25-acre farm that was for sale from a local farmer, and you know, paid for that. You know, paid for the lease out of the Magic Hat. You know, just like we would. Oh yeah, I didn't finish explaining the Magic Hat. So 15% goes to COM, the medical. 30% goes to get saved for cleanup, so that we disappear the site, disappear our impact on the site. That goes to buying seed, and you know, whatever the local seed that the Forest Service land managers recommend, and to disappear the trails, and people stay until the site is completely cleaned up. Like, you know, weeks, people will be picking up every little piece of paper or so that if you didn't know there was a rainbow gathering there, you wouldn't know that there had been a rainbow gathering there. So, oh, look at that, all done. See what talking does for you, David? Sometimes I just like to paint and shut up. But yes. Cool. So that's how we did the world gathering in the first world gathering in Australia, was on private farm that was for sale, and that really worked for the person that owns the land, because it's usually in a pretty remote place. And this place was a really beautiful place. It was right next to a state park, and that was separated, separated the state park from the private land with this beautiful freshwater stream. And every day was a quick dunk in the stream, and then there was a rope swing too that was really good. And that also was paid for out of the Magic Hat. So World Gatherings, the gatherings are usually at least a month, and same with the European gathering. The gathering is usually a lunar cycle. It's from new moon to new moon with a peak, big celebration on the full moon. But the American National, it's pegged at the 4th of July, for the silent prayer on the 4th of July. And we have a silent prayer at the World Gatherings too. But the World Gathering was originally, the idea was that it would go where no gathering would start by itself, would start organically. And it was this whole concept of rainbow gardening, where we would go to places where they'd never likely see gatherings of rainbow, and that gathering would whatever country it ended up in, say like Brazil. This actually happened in 2003. The rainbow gathering was in Brazil, and there were 1,000 Brazilians there, and they had held a council there at the gathering, and they decided to have a national. Although there was already, we didn't find out until we started scouting Brazil for the World Gathering, and it was decided that we had the gathering in Brazil at the second World Rainbow Gathering, which was in Africa, and I actually helped to scout that. It ended up being in Zimbabwe, and for the total solar eclipse of the sun on the June solstice of 2001, we found this place on a river, the Mazoe River, and it was an amazing. Scouting for a rainbow gathering in Africa. Let's just think about that for total solar eclipse. Where we went, the gathering ended up being in the tribal lands in northeastern Zimbabwe, and about 20 kilometers from the Mozambican border. And I think there were actually some graves from the Zimbabwean Civil War on the site. And then the day of the eclipse, there were, the locals came. They brought their drums. There were government officials that came. There were at least about between 100 and 125 international rainbows. And there was a contingent of army guys that were detailed by Robert Mugabe, the president, to make sure that nothing happened. He sent contingents of army people wherever there were large gatherings of Westerners, because he didn't want to have any kind of incident occur. And so these guys are really lucky that they got to this platoon of soldiers, because they got to be at a rainbow gathering, and no crime or anything, and there were actually two secret police, and they loved it. So on the day of the eclipse, the afternoon of the eclipse was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We had a silence right up until the eclipse, and it was a little island, little sandy island in the middle of the river, and we all gathered on there. There were like 300 of us at that point, including the locals and the army guys and the officials, and we circled up. We watched the eclipse, and we, a lot of the Westerners had the eclipse glasses. Like I had a welder's glass you could watch the eclipse in. It was incredible. It's like, I think it was about four minutes long, total solar eclipse. If you've never seen it, you got to see one. In fact, the next one in North America is going to be in 2017. You'll be able to see it in most of the United States and Canada, and you'll get to see the black sun, which is just, you know, it's like you're looking at the sky, like right above you is nighttime. You can see the stars and the planets and everything like that. But then you look over there, and it's daytime, and you look over there, and it's daytime, and it's just this band of darkness, of nighttime straight overhead. It's freaking incredible. And the moon is perfectly covering the sun. You know, the sun turns completely black. Then it's amazing. It's amazing. And I learned about this the hard way. That was intense. Okay, so let me reposition here for a minute. Okay, a little better. So there was a total solar eclipse in Hungary in 1999, and there was the European gathering was in Hungary along the what I learned was called the path of totality. It sounded so intense, the path of totality, you know? I had no idea what that was. And this is how I learned how important the path of totality is, especially if you want to see a total solar eclipse, right? So everybody there was a big festival in Hungary as well, a big music festival called the Solips. There was a few miles away from maybe 20 miles away from the Rainbow Gathering site. And we were racing across Europe to be at the gathering for the eclipse. And we unfortunately, we got within only 100 miles of the gathering when the eclipse started. And so we were actually on the train, and the trains, you know, let us off where we needed to get off. We get off the train, and the eclipse is starting, and we start getting our stuff and getting out of the train station so that we can see the sky and see the sun. So we get out there to the park right across from the train station because it's obvious we're not going to get any further. And so what ends up happening is, you know, the moon starts covering the sun, because, you know, covers the sun, covers the sun, covers the sun, and then it starts getting brighter again. And I'm like, what? We were at 96% of totality. And you know, it started getting darker, but it wasn't, you know, I mean, it looked eerie around you, but it wasn't totality. And we learned the hard way. I mean, I was like, I thought, you know, we were going to see the eclipse and the black sun, and it didn't happen. And I was just like crestfallen, you know, and somebody said, I said, when is the next one? And somebody said, it's about 18 months. And they said, I said, where? They said, Madagascar. And I was like, Madagascar. Because ever since I was a little kid, I thought I wanted to go to Madagascar, you know, because it just sounds like such a bizarre name for a place. And if you know where Madagascar is, it's like this island off the southeast coast of Africa. I was like, wow, that's got to be really trippy. So little did I know that if I hadn't missed that eclipse, you know, there are certain moments when you know that you've changed the world, okay, where one person made a difference, okay, and the fact that I missed that eclipse had a profound effect on the direction of a whole lot of things that happened for a whole lot of people after that. And I'm gonna tell this story, okay? So, hello. Where are you folks from? From Taiwan. Oh, wow. I'm I'm live streaming. So you're on where?
Oh.
See?
Oh.
Say hi.
Hello.
From Taiwan. Yeah, this is an original. See how this is drawn up by hand.
Oh.
Yeah.
So how much?
This is $50. 50. Yeah. But if you want to pay me 60, that's okay too.
I want a discount.
And the frame is hand painted as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. All of my frames I hand paint myself.
这还蛮可爱的、啊，柚子。就是它这个是印出来的，然后这是原本的。那达尔文的地方，它是偏爱吃。
Okay. Yeah.
Do you have original one?
I do have the original for that. Yeah.
Still,
No. It's $20,000. Yeah. Why? Still original. Yeah. It's this big.
oh, it's big.
Yeah. I had actually painted it on this board.
So it's not the original one is this one, right?
The fact? These are the frames are, you know, this is $15. This is $5. But
Do you have this size one?
of that, yeah, it's in here.
This size.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead and look at it. Go ahead. How's it going? You find it?
I love this one. 有时候是突然灵感。你要买大张吧，要小心保存哦，放在那个行李箱后面，不容易压到。现在新家需要走的好。找不到哎。你要哪一张啊？对啊。
Three inches. Three. Yeah.
Young girl.
Okay, that's our three. Yeah, Hindu sacred art. It's a very small addition into a free. There's the one in the frame. You could take it out. Did you want that?
Yeah, I want it. 你要哪一张啊？这边有啊，这边我要大的，要大的，拿到大的。
Yep, can you believe it? Such a deal, right? Yes? I'm going to roll it up for you. Comes with a free hair tie. Which color?
啊，他给你选绑的那个。老公喜欢这种。哎呦，我跟老公来。
Thank you.
哎，等一下，我要买。好。有小的哦。蛮可爱的。2000多块。感觉要是很贵，因为要是我们对呀，我想买这张，蛮特别的啊。哎，可以耶，蛮好看的啊。好想换那张那个。它有一个爱心的，我觉得有一张蛮可爱的。我觉得这张很可爱，那个爱心感觉在上。虽然它字写的都很多。飞行大条。哇，蛮特别的。
Yeah, my little blurb got cut off. Copyright notation.
Did you sign your name?
Oh, it's already on there. You see, it's like, looks like this. But this got cut off of this, you see? See how it got cut off?
I got a cut off. I'm so lucky, yay! 为什么？因为那个没印好，要举起你签。哦，印好他就不要签了。应该你就写个。不要签。签，他要签的好仔细。艺术家签字，好认真在签。
Here you go. Would you like me to roll it up?
Yeah. No.
What's that?
Hand, right?
Right? Yeah.
Hand, right?
Yep.
看他签什么？他签在。现在这条条件哦，他那个还没干，你看，他就晕掉了，啊。他应该写一段话。
Excellent. Thank you very much. Well, that was fun. Something about little commerce, you know. Okay. So, let me tell you this story. Okay. So, we go to the gathering in Hungary after we've missed the eclipse, the totality, and we finally get there a couple hours later, and everybody's talking about how amazing the black sun was. It's like, it's just killing me, right? And you know, the gathering was incredible. It was a really incredible time. And then, so that was 1999. And so the first World Rainbow Gathering was going to be, that was August of 1999, was going to be 8 months later in Australia. Okay? So make a long story, I could really get into this story, but we've only got 43%. So I wrote a book about what happened that whole year, and this part I'm telling you is just in the middle of that whole book. And then there's the autobiography, so you can read the whole story there too. Okay, David, what's the name of the autobiography? The name of the autobiography is The Unpolished Man. And the reason it's called The Unpolished Man is because the original name was The Unpolished Manuscript. And the computer, whenever I would type it out, it would rename the file Unpolished Man. It would abbreviate it at man. And so I was like, huh, that's really interesting. Unpolished Man. So that's what it ended up being, was The Unpolished Man. And the other book that has this story in it is it's called Care and Feeding in the Natural High, Divine Metaphysics 101. And that's a whole other story for another day. But I'll tell you this story. So 8 months later, make a long story short, we make it to Australia for the World Rainbow Gathering. And this was the first World Rainbow Gathering, so we didn't really know what we were doing. We didn't know, you know, if there was going to be a second World Rainbow Gathering, you know. But some folks had a council in India 3 years before, and they decided that there was going to be a World Rainbow Gathering, and it would be in Australia. They reached that consensus, and that's how Rainbow Gatherings decide where they're going to go next. Is there's a vision council usually. And at the end of the gathering, people sit around, they pass the feather, and whoever holds the feather holds the focus, and anybody can say whatever whatever their heart song is. And then once the feather has gone around completely once, then after that, whenever the feather comes to any person, they can call for consensus. But it has to go around at least once before there can be any call for consensus. And then the council will go on until, usually it convenes at rainbow noon, and then, which is a really kind concept, rainbow noon. It's like, yeah, well, whenever it looks like the sun's up in the middle of the sky, until sunset. And sunset is when officially in the council circle, you can only count for consensus as long as you can see the eyes of the person across the circle from you. And when it gets too dark, then there can be no consensus reached. The council can continue, but there can be no consensus on at least site selection. You know, like where the gathering would go next for the Vision Council. So rather, you know, usually, like especially at American gatherings, there's a big, you know, the whole thing is all about consensus council. It's all about like who, you know, where are we going next? That's what everybody wants to know. You know, in the process, like that first pass of the feather, everybody shares their vision, not only about where the gathering is going to be, but about, you know, rainbow in general. Okay, so over the years, I had kind of come to, you know, the perception that the Vision Council was actually the way that people realized, you know, came to see, you know, what direction Spirit wanted us to go in, right? Because the universe already knows where the next rainbow gathering is going to be. It's just us, you know, getting on board with that, you know. And so what ended up happening is I figured, you know, since how this is the first Rainbow Gathering and we didn't know if there was going to be another one, that the first World Rainbow Gathering, and then people had come from all over the world to be there. I mean, there were, you know, the dinner circle was, you know, between 1,000 and 2,000 people at the beginning, you know, and at one point it was like 4,000 people in a dinner circle, you know. So there was a lot of people from all over the world there, and it just seemed like a perfect opportunity for us to hold a vision council where we actually listen to one another's visions for what rainbow in general for the whole world is. And so we started the council in the middle of the gathering, not waiting till the end of it, you know. And we sat there every day for weeks. You know, it became the thing to do. So that everybody that cared to in the whole that came to the gathering would have a chance to hold a feather and share their vision of what rainbow is, and what it should be. And so we've been, you know, holding the council for like 3 weeks or so, and then one day, let's do this. Let's do that. How's that? That's better. Right there. Hi there. So, what ended up happening is that people, this one day, we were having the council underneath this grove of huge trees. And there had to be about 150 people sitting in the circle. So you figure, if there's 150 people sitting in a circle, and each one of them speaks for, you know, a minute, it's going to take, you know, more than 2 hours, 2.5 hours for you know, everybody to get a chance to speak. But it doesn't usually work that way, because there are some people that don't have anything to say and they'll just pass the feather. And there are other people that have, you know, a lot to say, and they'll take a long time to say it. And so it kind of works out, but you end up spending the whole afternoon sitting, listening to humanities, you know, share whatever its heart song is. In this case, about the vision for the Rainbow Gathering. Okay, so this one day, and I pretty much sat through every day because, you know, I was the one that initially called for the Vision Council, and I just loved sitting there listening. It's like, you know, I don't know if you've ever been to a 12-step program, but it's very much like being in a 12-step program in that 12-step meeting, because you're just listening to normal people share their truth, you know, speak the truth, and to hear the truth spoken. It's not something that you get to hear that often. You usually, what you hear in the media is people, you know, holding forth on their opinion about something, but they're usually getting paid to do that, you know, and they're usually professionals at it or really gifted at it. But when you get like every Tom, Dick, Harry, and Moe, and you get to listen to each one of them, you know, hold that feather in the focus of the circle for, you know, however long that they feel the need to, and everybody, they have the undivided attention of everybody that's there. For a lot of people, they've never had that experience before, and some really amazing things happen. That's why, you know, it feels to me like this guy's he's walking along with a stick, balancing a stick on his finger, because this has been a speech and you can do stuff like that. So when you hear, you know, just normal people share their heart, you know, their emotions get involved, and you can tell that it's a tremendously therapeutic experience, because most people aren't used to actually like being heard, you know. So and being listened to, and this is the thing that the Vision Council and councils in general are pretty amazing for, and that's one of the, I think one of the reasons why 12-step programs are so popular, is because they can be just being heard, you know, and having the opportunity to express yourself can be a very transformative experience for all concerned, you know, both to witness it, and to be that one that receives the feather and you know, listens to the spirit and speaks forth. And there are people that do that and they don't even know that that's what they're doing, you know. But then there are people that do it with full knowledge that they're speaking, they're allowing, they're invoking, inviting, and welcoming spirit to speak through them. And that's really when it, you know, some really amazing things happen. So this one day, we're all sitting underneath in this shade grove, these big trees, eucalyptus trees, and there were about 150 people, and the feather was across the circle from me, so like 75 people before I was going to get a chance to say anything that day. And don't you want to step on that? And thank you. It's all right. So what ended up happening is the feather came to this gentleman, this young man, who had a baby on his shoulder, right? It's this red-haired, dreadlocked brother. He had this baby on his shoulder, and somebody passed. You know, he was holding the baby, and the baby was asleep, and somebody passed him the feather, and he was like, and I'd never seen him in the circle before. In fact, I'd never seen him at the gathering before, but there he was, and he's holding the baby with one hand, and he's got the feather with another, and he gave the feather to the next person, and he said, "Can you hold that for me for a second?" Because he needed to hold on to the baby, right? He says, I want to speak for a second, but he said, I know I have a lot to say, and I really have been waiting a long time to say it in this council, but I'm going to trust that somebody else is going to say what I had to say, and because I don't want to wake up the baby. And at that moment, I realized, it hit me that that's one of the reasons why I was there in that circle. You know, I didn't have a baby, and I was a witness. I was bearing witness, as you know, that's Virgo. You know, 5 planets in Virgo. It's you know, the ancient term for Virgo is the martyr, and the translation, the original translation of the word martyr is as the witness, one who bears witness. You know, and so there I am bearing witness to the unfolding of this council. And this young man says this, and I realize that that's what I'm supposed to do. Is I'm supposed to listen to everybody and do my best to share what I feel is the, you know, what isn't being said, you know, and to speak for those that will never sit in a vision council, you know. And so half a day goes by, and eventually the feather comes to me. And you know, I'm an astrologer and everything, and I had my I brought my ephemeris with me, and because I'd looked at this situation before the gathering. Here's the tamale guy, and this brother. I remember missing the eclipse in Hungary, and I realized, oh, here it comes, and I realized that there was going to be a total solar eclipse that crossed southern Africa well, at that point, yeah, it was about a year and 4 months, so 16 months, something like that. And so when the feather came to me, I said, hey, you know what? There's going to be a total solar eclipse running through southern Africa. um, on the June solstice of 2001. And wouldn't it be great if the World Gathering was there? The next day, we went to call the council. We called the council underneath those trees and everything like that. And instead of 150 people there were only a dozen people. We called the council and we waited around for about an hour. And there were still just about a dozen people, right? So we started the council thinking that more people are going to show up. So the feather goes all the way around the circle, right? To all 12 people have spoken. And so now, rules are anybody could speak because it's already gone around once, right? Anybody could call for consensus, right? So the feather goes about 3/4 of the way around the circle to the person that's sitting next to me, and so I would be the next person to get the feather, right? And this person, out of the blue, says, I call for consensus. The next World Rainbow Gathering be for the total solar eclipse in southern Africa for the June solstice of 2001. And I call for consensus by silence, right? For 10 seconds, right? So he holds, and everybody's eyes light up. We're all looking, we look around, can we do this? I mean, there's only 12 people here, but everybody's like, yeah, I guess we can, And nobody said it. Nobody said anything, but it's all in the eyes. Everybody's looking at one another, right? So the silence is held for 10 seconds, right? And then 11, and then 12, and then, it had to be at least 30 seconds. Nobody said anything, because we all just realized what just happened. You could feel it in your body, and in a way, you could feel the earth. It's like this. What we had just done, but it just occurred, is thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of lives are going to be affected by the decision that had just been reached. And the Vision Council had, in a sense, it had spoken, in the sense that, the Vision Council, as I said earlier, it seems like the Vision Council is the eye of the gathering. It's the eye of rainbow. And it's the way that we get to, that the will of Spirit is revealed. And it speaks through everybody that speaks in the circle, And so we all just sat there. At that point, I think there were 14 people sitting there. And we sat there for a good 15 minutes before anybody else showed up. Nobody left. All 14 of us just sat there. And I think the feather passed, and we were just, we shared our amazement at what had just occurred. And, I hope that whoever is watching this gets the chance to sit in a Vision Council at some point and feel what it feels like when a consensus is reached. It's never not freaking amazing. So, but for those 15 minutes or so, it's like the word did not go out. Nobody left the circle, so the rest of the camp didn't know what had just happened. But slowly, people, somebody got up or somebody came and they were told what happened, and somebody would go off, and next thing you know, the word got around the camp. But by that point, we were all we'd pretty much done our business for the day, and we knew that there would be a lot more people at the council the next day because the council didn't need to end. We still had plenty of time to share the vision. The gathering was going to go on for another 2 weeks at least, and it did, and we still had Vision Council going on. And so I got up. Eventually, we closed the circle. We held hands and we omed together, and we brought it down to the earth. And in silence, we all got up in our own time, in our own leisure, and we walked off. And I went off about maybe 50 yards away, and I laid down in the tall grass, and I just listened to the camp. You know, I mean, at that point, like I said, there were probably several thousand people at the gathering. You know, I think the dinner circle at that point was 4,000 people, and you know, from all over the world, and I knew that within the space of a few, you know, moments, the word was going to get around, and people were going to be really strongly affected by what we'd said, what our consensus was reached. And at the same time, I felt that oh, I left out something. I left out something really important. The reason why that person was called the consensus was because people were like, when I first gave out that information about the gathering, you know, but I mean about the total solar eclipse, there was you know, people were like, yeah, Africa, but there's nobody here from Africa, and you know, it's going to be scouted, you know, and people were like, well, you know, the only way we could reach consensus is if somebody's willing to commit to you know, coordinate the scouting. And so when the feather came, I volunteered. I said, because I'm going to see that eclipse. So, you know, I'm going there anyway, one way or another. You know, I was thinking Madagascar. It ended up being in Madagascar, and I'm kind of glad because they have some pretty serious malaria issues there. They had malaria where we ended up scouting anyway. We scouted Zambia, Zimbabwe, Mozambique. In fact, one of our guide when we scouted Africa, Lukumbe, and the brother spoke 16 languages that we could count. You know, he passed about 2 years later. He passed from malaria. You know, so but anyway. You can tell I kind of, you know, have this smorgasbord approach to telling a story. It's like, I usually end up tying up all the loose ends, but if you feel like there's a loose end that I didn't tie up here, you just let me know, and I'll tie it up for you. Okay. So, lying there in the grass, I realized that, you know, we were about to change a lot of lives, you know, and that my life certainly was going to change because I was going to Africa, you know. I was going to coordinate the scouting to find a site for the total solar eclipse, and so that became my focus for the next, you know, 16 months was to, you know, coordinate the scouting and find the site and get myself there, you know. And that's, you know, that's a whole nother story for another time. But the reason I went into all that is when we finally in Africa and we had the Vision Council and we decided that it was going to be in Brazil. We didn't know at the time that they had been having rainbow gatherings in Brazil for 27 years. It wasn't until we started scouting Brazil on the ground that we ran into people that invited the scouting crew to their gathering, their annual gathering. And the difference between their gatherings and our gatherings is that they have, when they have a gathering, it's to establish a permanent permaculture community. So they, you know, they've had 27 gatherings and they've established 27 rainbow, you know, Brazilian rainbow intentional communities and that are sustainable. And the only other thing is that difference between their gatherings and our gatherings is that they line up for dinner instead of sitting in a circle, you know. And since
that one with the eye.
Yes. Cool. Thank you very much. So since then, Rainbow. There have been 2 World Rainbow gatherings in Brazil. The Brazilian family have an annual gathering, and out of that Brazilian gathering, the Brazilian family got together. They decided they were going to have a national gathering, an annual national gathering. There was also, like, all the South American families got together. All the people from South America got together at that. And they had a vision council for the South American family, and established a continental gathering that moves around South America. So it was kind of a vision that I shared at that council in Brazil. So anyway, I think that's about it. There's a little bit more on there, but not enough to paint a painting. So I think we're gonna. Jesus, Harry Perry. Keep rolling, Harry. Let's see. Let's take another look at our painting. Not too shabby. Not too shabby. I think we'll keep it. All right. So, I guess I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in. And tomorrow will be show number 20. How about that? Cool.